I still remember that evening as if it were yesterday. The house was quiet, too quiet. The kind of silence that presses against your chest and makes you feel like you're standing in the middle of a storm that hasn't yet begun. The clock ticked past 8. My husband Raymond had said he'd be home by 6. I told myself not to worry, but deep down, a small trembling voice whispered that something wasn't right. For 20 years, I'd built this home with him. I cooked his meals, balanced our bills, raised our daughter, and smiled through the exhaustion. Raymond was the breadwinner, yes, but I was the backbone, the quiet strength that kept everything from falling apart. But lately, that strength had begun to crack. Raymond had grown distant. Calls late at night, smells of perfume that weren't mine, mysterious work dinners that always seemed to happen on Fridays. I'd seen enough stories in my life to know when a man's heart had wandered. Still, I chose silence, because silence sometimes keeps the peace. Until that night. The door opened around 9:30. Raymond walked in, loosened his tie, and gave me a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Hey, honey," he said. "You're still up?" I looked at him for a long moment. The man I'd loved for 2 decades looked like a stranger wearing my husband's skin. "I made dinner," I said softly. "It's cold now, but you can heat it up." He waved me off. "I already ate. Long day at work." Work. That word again. I could almost hear the lie scrape against the floor as it left his mouth. But I didn't say a word. I simply nodded, stood up, and started clearing the table that no one had eaten from. Later that night, I sat alone in the living room, staring at the old wedding photo on the wall. We were so young there, his arm around me, eyes full of dreams. I wondered what happened to that version of us. My phone buzzed. A message from my best friend, Lila. Lila. "May, you awake?" Me. "Yeah, what's up?" Lila. "You didn't hear this from me, but I saw Raymond today, at the cafe downtown." Me. "And?" Lila. "He wasn't alone." I froze. My throat tightened, and the words blurred on the screen. Me. "Who was he with?" Lila. "A woman. Younger. Pretty. They were sitting close. Too close." For a long while, I didn't move. My world, once so stable, tilted quietly off its axis. But instead of tears, something colder settled in me. A strange calm. The kind of calm that comes before a storm. I put my phone down and whispered to the empty room. "All right, Raymond. If this is how you want to play, let's play." That night, I didn't sleep. I planned. By morning, I had decided I wasn't going to cry or beg. No. If he wanted to betray me, I would let him. But he would do it under my watch, on my terms. That's when I said the words that changed everything. "From now on, I want your paycheck sent to my account." He laughed when I told him later that day. Thought I was joking, but what he didn't know was I wasn't joking at all. It was the first move in a game he didn't even know he was playing, and I intended to win. The next morning, I stood in front of the kitchen window with my coffee, watching the sun rise over the quiet neighborhood. Everything looked so peaceful. The dew on the grass, the hum of early traffic, the smell of toast in the air. But inside me, something was shifting. For the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about Raymond's breakfast or his schedule. I was thinking about me. When he finally came downstairs, adjusting his cufflinks and pretending like last night hadn't happened, I spoke before he could. "Raymond," I said calmly, "from now on, I want your paycheck sent directly to my account." He froze mid-motion, eyebrows lifting. "My paycheck?" he repeated, almost amused. "Why would I do that?" I met his gaze and smiled gently. "Because you're terrible at keeping track of bills. And we agreed that I'd handle the household finances, remember?" He stared at me for a moment, probably trying to read if I was serious. Then he shrugged, kissed the top of my head, and said, "Fine, whatever makes you happy." And that was the moment he signed his power away, without even realizing it. For years, I'd trusted him to take care of our future. But that morning, I decided I was done trusting. I was going to protect myself. That same day, I called the bank and opened a new private savings account in my name only. Every transfer that came in from his paycheck, I split in two. Half went to the regular household account, and the rest went quietly into that new one. No one knew about it. Not Raymond, not our daughter, not even Lila. For the first time in a long while, I felt safe. But the universe has a cruel sense of timing. Because just when I thought I had the upper hand, I discovered the truth I wasn't ready for. It started with a phone call. "Mrs. Daniels?" The voice on the other end sounded young and nervous. "This is Alicia from the leasing office. We just wanted to confirm if you'll be renewing the apartment rental for next month." "Apartment?" I repeated. "You must have the wrong number." "No, ma'am, it's under Raymond Daniels. We have your home address listed as the billing contact." My heart dropped. I thanked her, hung up, and sat in silence. The world around me blurred as I tried to make sense of what I'd just heard. Raymond had an apartment, a second place, and I, his wife of 20 years, was listed as the billing contact. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. Instead, I picked up my phone and dialed Lila. "Lila," I whispered. "You still have that friend who works for the phone company?" "Yeah, why?" "I need a favor. I need to know who Raymond's been calling, and where he's been going." There was a pause. Then Lila said quietly, "May, are you sure you want to know?" "No," I admitted, "but I need to." That night I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the clock ticking loudly beside me. Every sound of his breathing next to me made my skin crawl. By morning, I had a message from Lila, a list of numbers, a few addresses, and one name that made my blood run cold. Vanessa Harper. She wasn't just anyone. She was our daughter's best friend. When I saw that name, Vanessa Harper, it felt like the air left the room. Vanessa had been coming to our home since she was a teenager. She and my daughter Chloe were inseparable. They'd laugh in the kitchen, share secrets in the living room, and call me Mom half the time. I used to make her favorite cookies every summer. She called them her Lucky Charms snacks. And now, that same girl was the woman my husband had been meeting behind my back. For a long while, I just sat there in silence. The walls around me seemed to pulse, like even the house could feel my heart break. Then I laughed. Not out of humor, but disbelief. Because betrayal, when it cuts that deep, has a strange way of numbing you before it breaks you. Later that evening, I watched Raymond get ready for another late meeting. He wore his favorite cologne, the one he used to save for our anniversaries. He hummed softly, cheerful, as if his lies didn't weigh a thing. "Where are you heading tonight?" I asked, pretending not to care. "Just a quick dinner with some clients," he said smoothly. "You know how it is." "Oh, of course." I smiled. "Work never ends for you, does it?" He laughed, kissed my cheek, and walked out the door. The sound of his car fading down the street felt like the final nail in the coffin of our marriage. But I wasn't ready to cry. Not yet. Instead, I grabbed my coat, my car keys, and quietly followed him. For the first few blocks, I kept a safe distance. His taillights glowed faint red through the drizzle that had started to fall. Every turn he made, every signal, every pause at the lights, I memorized them like steps in a dance I never wanted to learn. Finally, he stopped. A quiet street on the other side of town, the kind lined with small apartments and cheap restaurants. I parked a few cars back and watched. Raymond got out, checked his phone, and looked around. Then a door opened. Vanessa. She stepped out wearing a soft blue dress, the same one I'd bought for Chloe's graduation last year. My breath caught. He smiled at her the way he hadn't smiled at me in years. He pulled her close, kissed her forehead. whispered something that made her laugh. And then they disappeared into the building. I sat there in the car, the rain hitting the windshield, my hands shaking. 20 years of love, sacrifice, and trust, all replaced by a girl who used to call me Mom. But even then, even in that heartbreak, I didn't let myself fall apart. Because in that moment, one truth became crystal clear. Raymond thought I was weak. He thought I'd never fight back. He was wrong. When he came home later that night, I was sitting at the table with a calm smile. "Long day?" I asked. He nodded, avoiding my eyes. "Yeah, exhausting. That client dinner went on forever." I said softly, stirring my tea. "I bet it did." He didn't notice the edge in my voice. He never did. That was the night I made my silent vow. I wasn't going to confront him yet. I wasn't going to cry or scream. I was going to let him keep digging his hole, while I quietly built my escape. Because when the truth finally came out, I wanted him to lose everything. And the first step was already in motion. His paycheck was now mine. For the next few weeks, I played my part perfectly. Every morning, I kissed Raymond goodbye as he left for work. Every evening, I served dinner, smiled politely, and listened to his rehearsed stories about meetings that never existed. It was strange. The more he lied, the calmer I became. It was as if each deception built a quiet wall inside me, brick by brick, until his words couldn't reach me anymore. What he didn't realize was that while he was falling deeper into his affair, I was building a life he'd never be able to touch again. I started by cleaning the accounts. Slowly, carefully. Each week, I moved a few $100s from the household fund into my private one. Nothing suspicious, nothing loud, just enough to grow. Then I began sorting through every file, every insurance paper, every property document we owned. I discovered more than I expected. Hidden under our joint records, Raymond had opened a credit line I never knew about. He'd borrowed against the house, my beach house, to finance something else. At first, I felt sick, then angry, then focused. I met with a lawyer the next day. Not for divorce, not yet. I told him I was considering a family trust restructuring. He smiled and handled the paperwork without asking questions. By the time I walked out of that office, the ownership of our beach house had been quietly shifted into my name alone. Raymond wouldn't realize it until it was too late. One evening, as I was reviewing some of the documents, Lila stopped by. She took one look at me and said, "May, you've changed." I smiled faintly. I guess pain will do that to a person. She sat down across from me, her eyes soft. "Are you sure about this? About playing along?" "Yes," I said, "because if I confront him now, he'll deny it. He'll twist it, and I'll end up looking like the crazy one. But if I wait, if I build this the right way..." I trailed off, staring at the window where the reflection of the sunset burned against the glass. "Then when it's over, I'll walk away clean, and he'll have nothing left to destroy." Lila reached for my hand. "You deserve peace, May." Peace. The word echoed through me like a promise I hadn't realized I'd made to myself. But peace didn't come easily, because every night, when I lay beside Raymond, I could feel the weight of the lie between us. Once he rolled over, half asleep, and whispered, "You know I love you, right?" I didn't answer. I just stared at the ceiling and wondered how many women had heard that same line while he was thinking of someone else. The next morning, I made a decision. If Raymond wanted to keep living his double life, I'd let him. But I would be there, quietly, invisibly, making sure every choice he made tied him tighter to the truth he thought he could escape. So when he mentioned a business trip the following weekend, I smiled and said, "Of course, honey. You deserve a break." He had no idea that hours later I would be booking my own trip to the very same destination. If he wanted to play games, I was done being the pawn. It was time he learned who really controlled the board. The city Raymond claimed to be visiting for business was 2 hours away. He said he'd be gone for 3 days. Meetings, client dinners, late nights. I smiled and packed his suitcase myself, folding his shirts with careful precision. "Don't overwork yourself," I said softly. He kissed my cheek, thanked me for being understanding, and drove off. An hour later, I left too. My own suitcase in the trunk, my heart pounding in a rhythm I could feel in my throat. I didn't tell Lila. I didn't tell anyone. This was something I needed to see with my own eyes. Not through whispers or suspicions, but reality. When I arrived, I parked 2 blocks away from the hotel he'd mentioned in passing weeks ago. A tall glass building, the kind that looked too clean, too perfect, like it had never held a lie inside. But lies always find their way in. From the cafe across the street, I watched. For an hour, nothing. Just people moving, checking in, taxis coming and going. Then, there he was. Raymond, my husband, my betrayer, and beside him, her. The woman I'd only seen once, from a distance, when her name accidentally appeared on a restaurant receipt he tried to hide. She was younger, dressed like she belonged in a life without consequence, and the way she laughed, the way she touched his arm, it was as if she had no idea the man she was smiling at already belonged to someone else. I felt my fingers tighten around my coffee cup until I almost crushed it. But I didn't move. Not yet. Instead, I took out my phone. One photo, then another, then a video. Each click was quiet, precise, like punctuation marks on the end of a dying story. After they went inside, I followed. Not too close, just enough to see the direction of their room. Floor 9, room 917. The next morning, I came back, dressed, differently, with sunglasses, calm as ice. I waited in the lobby until they checked out together. He held her hand openly this time, carelessly. They got into his car and drove off, and I followed. Through the city, through the outskirts, until they stopped by a lake. A small cottage stood there, secluded, quiet, like something out of a romantic movie. He opened the door for her. I watched them disappear inside. That's when something inside me shifted. Not rage, not heartbreak. Something colder, a kind of clarity I hadn't felt in years. He wasn't the man I loved. He was just the man I once believed in. And belief, once it breaks, becomes power when you stop needing it. That evening, I drove home without confronting him. But before I left the hotel, I had one more stop to make. The front desk. "Mrs. Raymond Carter," I said, showing a soft smile. "My husband stayed here this week, and he seems to have misplaced our corporate receipts. Can you print a copy for our records?" The woman behind the counter didn't question it. She printed the invoice, with both names listed. And that little slip of paper became my weapon. When Raymond returned home that Sunday night, he looked tired, pretending it was from work. He kissed me on the forehead. "Missed you, sweetheart." I smiled back, calm and polite. "Oh, I missed you too," I said, slipping the folded receipt into his coat pocket as I hugged him. It would take him a few seconds to find it later, but when he did, he'd realize I knew everything. And the silence that followed would be the first step toward his unraveling. He stood there, drenched in his own guilt, the lake behind him flickering with the dying light of sunset. I could see the reflection of myself in his eyes, not the woman who once waited up at midnight for a call that never came, but the woman who had finally stopped waiting. "May, please," he whispered. It was a mistake. I took a slow step forward, my heels sinking slightly into the damp ground. Which part, Raymond? The cheating, the lies, or the years you looked at me and pretended not to see me anymore? He swallowed hard, his voice trembling. I just, I lost myself. I almost laughed. No, you didn't lose yourself. You sold yourself, piece by piece, to comfort, to ego, to anyone who told you you were still worth something. I paused, my eyes fixed on him. But you forgot the one person who actually believed you were. He looked down, tears finally escaping down his cheeks. And for a moment, just one moment, I saw the man I married all those years ago, the one who used to dance with me in the kitchen when the power went out, the one who swore we'd grow old together by the ocean. But that man was long gone. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out a single envelope. This, I said, handing it to him, is the last piece of us. Hesitated, then opened it. Inside was a copy of the hotel invoice, a photo of him and her, and divorce papers signed by me. His face crumbled. May, no, please don't do this. I already did, I said softly. While you were on your last business trip. The beach house, the accounts, the cars, it's all sorted. I don't need your money anymore. He stared at me, disbelief twisting his voice. Then why are you doing this? Why did you want my paycheck sent to your account? I smiled, a sad, tired smile. Because I wanted you to feel what it's like to be controlled by someone who doesn't see your soul, to feel powerless, even for a moment. He took a shaky step toward me, his voice breaking. May, I love you. I looked at him, really looked. And for the first time, I saw the full picture of what we'd become. A ghost of a marriage, a man trapped by his lies, and a woman who finally found her way out. No, Raymond, I said. You loved what I did for you, not me. I turned and started walking back toward the car, the cool air brushing against my face. He didn't follow. He just stood there, the sound of the waves swallowing his silence. When I reached the car, I paused. The horizon was painted in gold and crimson, the end of something, but also the beginning. I took one last look at the lake, whispered a quiet goodbye, and got in. As I drove away, I didn't cry. The pain had already done its work, carved me hollow, burned me clean. Now, there was only peace. A strange, quiet peace that felt like breathing again after being underwater for years. That night, I returned to the beach house, the one I'd secretly taken back under my name. I opened the windows, let the sea breeze in, and poured myself a glass of wine. The stars were out, shimmering above the waves. For the first time in decades, I felt something close to freedom. And as I stood there, staring into the night, I whispered to myself, from now on, everything I earn, everything I build, everything I am, belongs to me. Sometimes, the storm doesn't come to destroy you. It comes to wash away everything that was never meant for you. For years, I thought love meant endurance, that staying, even when it hurt, made me strong. But real strength, real love, is knowing when to walk away with your dignity still intact. I used to wake up every morning wondering what he needed. Now I wake up wondering what I need. And that feels like breathing again. People often ask me, May, don't you regret giving so many years to someone who didn't deserve you? And I tell them, no, because even the wrong people can teach you what the right kind of love should feel like. If you're listening to this, and you've ever been betrayed by a partner, a friend, or by life itself, remember this. You don't heal by pretending it didn't happen. You heal by facing it, owning it, and promising yourself, never again. Forgiveness isn't weakness. It's saying, you no longer have power here. So tonight, as the waves sing outside my window and the moon paints the sea in silver light, I'm not thinking about what I lost. I'm thinking about everything I finally found: my peace, my freedom, and the woman I was always meant to be. If my story touched you tonight, stay with me. Subscribe so we can walk this journey of healing and strength together. Because one thing I've learned is even broken hearts can still shine, sometimes even brighter than before.